Hello and welcome to a special program on SAARC, the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. To discuss SAARC's promise and potential, we have a distinguished panel in the studios of Kantipur TV in Kathmandu. The panelists, starting with Bangladesh Ambassador, Her Excellency Mashfi Binti Shams, India's Ambassador, His Excellency Ranjit Ray. From Nepal, we have its Minister for Commerce, the Honorable Sunil Bahadur Thapa. And I'm Moses Manoharan, the moderator for your discussion today. We have a theme for this SAARC program. It's called SAARC's Success Story. Madam Ambassador, does that seem to you a realistic aspiration, or is it just a fanciful hope?
Thank you very much. Actually, I think it is a very interesting theme that you have chosen, successes of SAARC, because those of us who have had some experience with the SAARC process do feel that SAARC is unfortunately gets a lot of negative press because most people refer to SAARC as only a talk show or a place where they just get together annually and go away and nothing gets done. But SAARC has had some successes in the last 30 years. And we need to also remember that we need to put things in perspective. So if we think how SAARC was established and what was the region like when SAARC was established, I think, of course, even though there's a long way to go, but there are some successes there.
Madam Ambassador, you are being very modest. Bangladesh played a pivotal role in the very foundation of SAARC.
Yes, Bangladesh was one of the mooted the idea of SAARC, but SAARC would never have got off if the other countries of the region had not come forward and supported Bangladesh. And when we think of SAARC, that at least at that time, all of us were going our separate ways in our development agenda. We were going our separate ways in trade and commerce, and we were all in our separate entities. SAARC gave us a platform where the leaders could get together, where they can talk of identify some common areas of interest and work out ways to strengthen those areas of interest. And if not always going at the pace that people would want it to, they can at least, set down identify some core areas of interest, such as poverty alleviation, agriculture, human resource development, security, connectivity, trade. So these are very vital areas of interest to all the member countries. And there are many ways that we can work together to go ahead in these areas.
Thank you. Ambassador Ray, your country represents an overwhelming kind of a weight on SAARC. It can be almost a banyan tree which smothers other nations, or it can make a shelter under which everybody grows. There's a new government under Prime Minister Modi brimming with confidence, economic resurgence. How does that augur for the rest of the countries of SAARC?
Very positively, I think. And I'm very optimistic. I think India is very optimistic about SAARC. I think SAARC is really an idea whose time has come. In today's world, everyone talks about regional integration, global integration. No country can grow in isolation. And I think the same is true of South Asia. It is very, very important to grow in an interconnected fashion, whether for peace and stability, whether for economic development, progress, prosperity of our peoples. We have similar problems. So I think there is a huge potential. And you said, you referred to the new government in India. I think Prime Minister Modi's government, a clear foreign policy priority is neighborhood first. And indeed, some of the very first trips that he made as Prime Minister were to the neighborhood. He invited all the leaders of SAARC to his swearing-in ceremony. So it's very clear that the focus of the new government is on the neighborhood, and SAARC plays a very pivotal role in that. So we are very optimistic about SAARC. We believe that SAARC needs to become more dynamic and also reach out to the people. It cannot just be restricted to the level of the government or, certain sectors of the economy. I think it really needs to reach out to the peoples of our countries. They must feel very much that they're part of SAARC. So overall, I think we are very optimistic, and we look forward to a revitalized, very dynamic SAARC playing a critical role for economic integration and prosperity in our region.
As a senior foreign service person, you may appreciate this nicety here. Is there a nuanced diplomatic dilemma for India? Because India, unlike the rest of SAARC, does also have a significant global role. How do you balance the prioritizing of regional considerations with global aspirations?
See, both are very important. But I think primarily, if India is to grow, develop, prosper, India needs a peaceful neighborhood. If we have a neighborhood that is unstable, then that will willy-nilly impinge on our progress, prosperity, and stability. So that's extremely important. At the same time, in order to grow, we need capital, we need technology, we need the best of technology available in the world. So clearly the world is extremely important, and there are a lot of global issues with international ramifications. So I don't think you can say that, this is important or that is important. I think for any country, and certainly for India, both the global context and the regional and the immediate neighborhood context are very critical to our pursuit of prosperity and development.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Mr. Minister, this SAARC summit in Kathmandu would you see it as a coming out for Nepal after a decade of unrest, lack of stagnation of the economy? Is this a coming out? Is this a bright future? Will this, hope for the future spread across SAARC as a
Well,
host?
of course. Let me just put one thing quite clearly in addition to Her Excellency is that, one of the major story of SAARC is at least to bring all head of the states together in this last 29 years together to have dialogue. Dialogue is very important. So I think this is the most successful element to this whole prospect. Now, when you look at the future of SAARC, one thing is very eminent is in the last 2 years, we've had elected government in all the 4 countries. Like, you talk about Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and also followed by Afghanistan. So when you look at all these leaders who've been elected, they all have a vision. And I'm sure there's a commitment to, for the growth of SAARC. And we can see that because when I was in Bhutan, I saw a very strong commitment among all the SAARC foreign ministers as well as, commerce minister putting in together new thought of how, we should take SAARC together in the coming days. So I think Kathmandu will play a very vital role in coming up with new declaration, and especially on the economic side of the declaration.
Nepal, as other countries, for instance, Bhutan or Sri Lanka, all of them have had very localized domestic issues. Where does SAARC step in to give special attention to such countries when they face greater challenges than the rest?
No, one should look at it at the history. If you look at the history of South Asia as a whole, whenever something happens to one nation, it gets affected to the other. If you're talking about insurgency, it happened in Nepal, Bangladesh, to some extent, Sri Lanka, and also disturbance in India, followed by Pakistan and Afghanistan. But I think we get to learn from each other, and that is the beauty of coming in together. And I think the dialogue that I just told you about bringing all head of the states together plays a very vital role. Despite of your own domestic problem, is how each one can help each other to find a solution to look forward.
Is it very important for the heads of government, whatever their bilateral issues, to come together for SAARC?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, when they come in together, a lot of things are discussed, and a lot of issues are also taken into consideration, because apart from the main SAARC summit, you have these bilateral meetings. And a lot of things comes up open, so that this, as I said, the dialogue is the most important thing. As long as dialogue continues, there is hope, and I think that hope now is turning into reality.
So you'll make a distinction between dialogue and what Madam Ambassador says is that critics of SAARC say it is just a talk fest and people just come and talk. So talk as opposed to dialogue.
No, I mean, you could define things the way you want, but if the critic had been too critical, then, we would not be traveling all the way to the 18th summit. So when we come to the 18th summit, we realize that certain things have happened. And of course, you need talk to make things happen as well.
So I think that is one great success of SAARC, which is that at the end of the day, whatever the problems within SAARC, all 8 heads of government of the SAARC members states come together.
Absolutely.
Irrespective of whatever happens. I think we'll just take a commercial break here and come back.
साथ छ हरेक पल खुशीको साथ बिताउने छौं हरेक आफ्नो पल भिडियो कलको साथ
मम्मी टिभी हेर्ने
बनाऊ रंगीन जिन्दगी बनाऊ हर पल यो खुशी भिडियो कलको साथ Videocon, experience change.
Welcome back to this discussion, which is riveting as far as I can feel. This part of the program is on the most important factor most people feel of SAARC, and that is the economy. How it progresses may determine the future of SAARC, the scholars say. So we go to the country which has the biggest role to play in this, India, and its Ambassador Ray. What is your feeling? Can the success or the great confidence which India is brimming with under Prime Minister Modi lift SAARC?
Oh, absolutely. I think the economic integration is the critical objective, and indeed at the forthcoming Kathmandu summit, the theme of the summit is deeper integration for peace and prosperity. So I think there is realization across the region that we must integrate economically. And you can see this happening in other regions of the world. So clearly this is a very, very important priority. And if you look at earlier SAARC summits as well, I think the 2 key focus areas have been trade and connectivity. And when I talk about trade, it's not only trade in goods, but also in services. And if you add investments to that, so a lot of the focus of SAARC has been in developing this free trade area, which, of course, should be doing better than it is at present, because under SAFTA, I think our total trade within SAARC is only some $3 billion, whereas intra-SAARC trade as a whole is about $30 billion. So it's only about 10%. So we have a long way to go. Similarly, the trade in services, I think some countries have given their offers, others are yet to give it. But I think once we have this legal framework in place, we should move rapidly towards more economic integration. Second aspect is connectivity. It's all very well to have agreements, but if you don't have physical connectivity or air connectivity or rail connectivity or even digital connectivity, how do you trade? So connectivity is the other key area. And here I would say, if you look at infrastructure, I think there's a huge need to develop this connectivity. And happily, I can inform your viewers that India has already initiated several connectivity projects at a bilateral level, but the end result of these projects is that you have a regional connectivity framework in place. And the same is true of energy. If you look at the bilateral programs India has with Nepal, with Bhutan, with Bangladesh, and the electricity grids that are coming up, you can see the beginnings of a regional connectivity arrangement for power trading and exchange within SAARC. So I think these 2 are very critical factors in order to achieve our objective of economic integration.
Thank you. Madam Ambassador, how far is SAARC and Bangladesh, for instance, willing to go in lowering trade barriers, tariffs, working towards currency swaps where one where unfortunately one currency will dominate. How far is it willing to go? And what is the fear of being swamped?
At least in Bangladesh, I think the fear of being swamped is not really very valid, because Bangladesh, as you know, is the second largest ready-made garments exporter in the world. It has a huge workforce. It has a comparative advantage where labor is concerned, where services is concerned. So I don't think being swamped is the issue here. Bangladesh has been working very constructively towards the lowering of tariffs under SAFTA, and also bilaterally. And we are also working towards, as Ambassador mentioned, towards connectivity. To have better facilitate free movement of goods across the border through India to Nepal, Bhutan, through India towards Sri Lanka. So all those are going to help this free movement of goods and work towards the integration. As Ambassador was mentioning, unless you have the connectivity in place, nothing is really going to move forward. It costs more to call from Nepal to Bangladesh. A telephone call from Nepal to Bangladesh costs more than it costs to call USA or UK. So if you have this sort of a system, that's not going to help your regional integration. Does it make sense? So we need to work on dismantling all these barriers that we have.
Thank you. Mr. Minister, both the ambassadors have talked about goods and services. Now the very crucial point at which EU is floundering a little is the movement of human capital across borders. In this, Nepal is in a blessed space where you have free movement of people between Nepal and India, and there is hardly any checks on this. So can you see this ideal being replicated right across SAARC?
Well, of course. Well, first let me say that, when the government in Nepal, India was formed, it was with great significance that Prime Minister Modi came up with a very strong message to the region, saying that, the region has to prosper with development, prosperity. That means he overshadowed the political agenda of the region, which is very good. And I think, in my view, that the 18th SAARC summit will really focus more on economic agenda than the political agenda. So in that respect, when you talk about, human being having access to each other country, that helps a lot. Because at the end of the day, when you talk about services and trade, as what His Excellency very rightly said, with human resources being transferred, services become one of the major component to the whole factor. And today in Nepal, we have really gained a lot with access of human resources crossing border without any barriers. So I think if this could happen, and in fact we have been talking a lot on getting free visas in the SAARC nation, which has now only been limited to prominent people or artists or people who are involved in sports as businessmen. And I think this is also, so we should broaden the definition of visa regime in the region so that people can have access to each other's country.
And also expertise. For instance, India, which has its international expertise on IT, can share that with others only through reasonable movement of free movement of professionals. Bangladesh must be doing something right when its garment industry is thriving and others around are not. So here we have a need to exchange professionals.
Well, if you look at SAARC region and its potential economically, I could say that we are the best, and we have a lot of potential. When I talk about best, I'm trying to link with potential, and I think by sharing each other's experience and what we have, we could regionally become one of the strongest region in the world, both on human index as well as in capital index and then in terms of infrastructure. I mean, where on earth could you ever find the potential of, the amount of electricity that can be generated in SAARC nation? And if you look at agriculture, put all the 8 countries together, the amount of agricultural product that we can have is immense.
So we have another success here in that we don't lack in producing people of high caliber professionally or doing businesses like IT and garment industry in Bangladesh, but unfortunately the best and the brightest are abroad, and the success of SAARC may bring them back, we hope.
Well, there is. I mean, people are coming back after seeing potential. After working with United Nations for 23 years, I've come back to Nepal, and there are similar stories in other SAARC nations as well.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. We'll take another short break before we come back again.
साथ छा हरेक पल खुशी को साथ बिताउने छौं हरेक आफ्नो पल भिडियो कलको साथ
मम्मी टिभी हेर्ने
बनाऊ रंगीन जिंदगी बनाऊ हर पल यो खुशी भिडियो कलको साथ Videocon, experience change.
Mr. Minister, we have 2 examples, shining or not, I don't know, before us. ASEAN, EU. And we have other kinds of groupings, some military, some economic. What are the lessons that SAARC can learn from them?
Well, if you look at, first of all, you have to look at the formation of SAARC. That is very important. Under what pretext this whole SAARC was, formed. And secondly is, we are learning through our own practices and how we can be the best or how we can put things together. So at this moment, for me, I would look at SAARC as taking back our own experience and the areas that we need to cooperate. So when you talk about EU and ASEAN, you're also talking about a very different economic perspective. And today SAARC is looking for a better economic perspective and development. So I think at the moment that we have to really look is to how we can upgrade our own SAARC activities within that framework that we are engaged in. So I would not really jump into EU's model or ASEAN model and try to complicate things that are already moving in. So I think we have to give continuity to what we're doing, and secondly is to look at our own perspective to see what we want to reach and what we want to do.
Madam Ambassador, would you take it further and say that EU, for instance, has worked towards, whether successful or not, a common currency, many steps towards borderless entities. So should we be thinking of working ourselves towards that?
Of course, in a way that would be what eventually we would all aspire to have a borderless world, not only a borderless region, but globally we should be borderless, or globally we should be all economically integrated. But the challenges that face the SAARC member countries is very different from the challenges that faced the EU countries when EU was established or when the ASEAN was established. And their path towards integration and their goal of integration was certainly different from our goal of integration. Right now, the SAARC countries, despite our economic successes, we do face challenges of poverty, of health issues, of sanitation, education. There are so many human challenges that we face, and we need to work together first of all to improve the lives of our people, and then slowly I think we can start to move much more towards a much more aspiring EU model of integration.
May I interrupt, Madam Ambassador? The EU, for instance, it also faces great disparities. For instance, the countries of Eastern Europe, which are coming in, have great differences in standards of living. So there has been that problem, and they have been coping. I don't know how well, but they are coping.
Yes, I'm not talking of disparities. I'm saying that individually, all of our countries are working towards the Millennium Development Goals and the post-2015 development agenda. The SAARC countries need to work together towards towards a realistic dialogue towards that, towards a more achievable and sustainable development agenda. And of course, the integration, the borderless world, the economic integration, the common currency, those are, I'm saying that we all do aspire towards that. That's the ideal. But the path towards how we achieve that, or the historical background towards achieving that will be much different. Our experience will be much different because our challenges are very different.
Just coming back before, Ambassador, to the Minister, much of the challenge of EU and to a lesser extent ASEAN, and I think greatly in SAARC, is the issue of identity. And especially when almost similar cultures live across each other's borders. Nepal again is unique in that it seems to have just merged its identity when it chooses with India, and Indians merge it with the Nepalese. So is there any message in this which you can give to the rest of SAARC?
Well, I think one of the best things that with being neighbors in the neighborhood that we've been living with harmony, and you've never come across any kind of border clashes or anything. So you could imagine the social fabric that we have when it comes into integration and other social aspect. So I think our example as South Asia has been of tremendous success in the region, and that we can also show it to the world when it comes to either inter-border or intra-border. So I think if this continues and if you're able to promote this harmony, we'll be able to show our success to other nations as well. Because if you look at EU, as you talked about disparity, we do have disparity, but then this disparity sort of like overrides because of our strong social fabric and bonds.
I put it to you, Ambassador, slightly unhappily for this group, I think, that the agenda which Madam Ambassador is talking about may be overtaken by the agenda of youth, the generations which are coming after us. And they have a different agenda, and they may not be so patient in waiting for change and millennium goals. And India, above all, should be very responsive to this, having such a big population of young.
No, absolutely. I think all of us have to listen to our youth. And I see our youthful population as a huge asset to this entire region. Because if we have a youthful population which is very dynamic, very industrious, so we have a huge competitive advantage internationally. If you look at Western countries, they all have aging populations. Our part of the world is lucky to have this very youthful, very dynamic population. So it's a great asset to our economic development of the region as a whole. But coming back to the earlier point you made about lessons learned from the European Union and ASEAN, I would agree with what Ambassador Mashvi has said about eventual aspirations. But I think some of the good lessons that have been, can be learned, for instance, from the European Union model, is uniform standards. You can travel from one country to another in Europe on highways with the same signage, so it's almost seamless connectivity. And I think that's something we should try and do in our own region. Or look at infrastructure. The manner in which the advanced European countries have supported the relatively late entrance into the European Union in upgrading their infrastructure to a certain common standard. So I think things like that certainly are of great practical relevance to our own region. And if I may add, why look as far as the European Union and ASEAN? Look at our own region itself. Within our region, every country has excelled in something or the other. There is microfinance in Bangladesh. So we can look at all these success stories and actually emulate them in our own countries. So I think there's a huge potential, lot of things that can be done, lot of things that can be learned from different examples and different experiences. So I feel overall extremely optimistic at the manner in which we are trying to integrate regionally within SAARC.
But doing things in the SAARC way and capturing the imagination of people, as as EU and ASEAN has done, they have captured the imagination. It's center stage in EU. If you look at the papers in Europe, big issues, discussions go on. Same in ASEAN all the time over different kinds of issues. That capturing of people's imagination, think is not there in SAARC. Why is that?
I agree with you. I think, yes, I agree. I think SAARC, at least in the public perception, is very much a government affair. You know, people are not involved. And I think that is a huge drawback. And I think that is something we really need to examine and see how SAARC can be something very much a part of the lives of the peoples of this region. So I think that's a very valid point. And I think that is something we need to focus on and you know, see how to bring the people into SAARC.
One way EU became part of the people was through bold economic decisions. Like they pushed ahead despite opposition from big countries for Maastricht to happen and for a common currency to be adopted. That bold step, can India do it?
You see, I mean, you must all, you know, you said in the very beginning that the region is such that, you know, there is a lot of asymmetry in size. And so I think India, being the largest country, has to be very conscious of that. And I think that's very important. You have to take everybody along at a pace at which everyone feels comfortable. So, you know, this is very much a voluntary process where everybody is a stakeholder and everybody is comfortable at the pace at which economic integration or developments within SAARC are taking place. So I think India is very conscious of that. And I think while some may criticize the pace at which SAARC is integrating and growing, I think the fact that it's happening, the fact that everyone feels that they are a stakeholder in this process, so while the pace may be slow, I think the direction is right, and I think that should give us some confidence to speed up things in the future.
Coming to you, Mr. Minister, one of the things that puts EU, for instance, in the forefront, and even ASEAN and APEC and all, in a different kind of way, is that the big leaders are always talking about it, you know, whether they're squabbling or but they never ignore it. You know, you have Angela Merkel from Germany, you have Prime Minister Cameron from the UK. They all are all the time engaged in the issue of EU, debating it. Is that so? I mean, do leaders in the region talk that much about SAARC?
Well, let me add to what His Excellency just said. I mean, from the formation of SAARC from 1985, the whole SAARC has been totally, you know, government-centric. We never went out of the government holding. And even if you look at the last several years that the different centers or facility centers have been opened in different SAARC nations, it has always been given responsibility to government-aided project or with the government. So it could never come out to the people as much as we thought it could. But I think now one of the major issues that has been discussed with in SAFTA, and actually it is the economic binding that brings people together. And I think once we're able to make an agreement on SAFTA, I think that's where the binding between people to people from different regions will open up, because that's when the private sectors will jump in to do different business, building infrastructure, connectivity, you name it. Now, when you talk about SAARC and as they do it in EU, we've not yet found a very strong platform where, like, you know, we could discuss all this from time to time. I mean, so we have to wait for a year to come, and before we joined the program, Her Excellency and I were just discussing the same issue, thinking that maybe SAARC meetings should be taking every 6 months without having any stage show, where leaders would just get together and keep on discussing. So we've not yet made that modality, and I think it's very important. And one of the area that SAARC can be pushed up to be more people-to-people friendly is also through the private sector.
Not only that, but I think, may I put it to all of you that one of the most popular things which happen among all the countries is sport. I mean, when Bangladesh plays a country, I think the whole nation watches. When you play football, the whole nation watches. And when small countries defeat big countries, it's a big issue. I know when I was in Afghanistan with President Karzai, and Afghanistan had just entered, you know, the top of cricket, and people were uplifted. So where is that fitting in all this?
SAARC does need to be more people-oriented. I do agree with both the distinguished panelists that SAARC has been too government-centric. But interestingly, there are so many small bodies, like South Asian Architects. They have this platform. South Asian Surgical Association, SAARC Lawyers Association. There are many bodies under SAARC which are not fully government, but these are more private entities which do come together sometimes annually or biennially. They come together, they have meetings, they disseminate organizations, and they do identify themselves as SAARC members. So I think that we need to promote that a bit more, and we need to encourage that sort of South Asian bonding among all, not only architects and doctors and engineers, but take it down to even more to the common people. Sports can be a very important way of promoting SAARC, and also I think the media can play a vital role in actually promoting this South Asian identity, the SAARC, the role of SAARC, and also perhaps think tanks. They are doing a lot of work, but they need to sort of perhaps generate more publicity about SAARC and introduce more topics on SAARC-related issues. Perhaps that will raise the consciousness of what SAARC is doing and what SAARC can do.
So we must make it less government-centric, make it more people-friendly, and hopefully get the media involved in this. We will now go for a break.
बिताउने छौं हरेक आफ्नो पल भिडियो कलको साथ
मम्मी टिभी हेर्ने
बनाऊ रंगीन जिंदगी बनाऊ हर पल यो खुशी भिडियो कलको साथ Videocon, experience change.
So, distinguished panelists, now we are talking about bringing SAARC out of the side of a closet, as it were, of intimate, private discussions among great leaders and making it more public and more people-friendly. How do we go about it? Can we start with you, Ambassador?
Well, we have the South Asian Games, for instance, I think hugely popular. We can have a SAARC cultural festival every year, even before the summit. We can have a people's SAARC. In Europe, there is this very popular Eurovision song contest, and it really brings all the countries of Europe together. We can, have similar creative ideas which will engage and involve the vast majority of people, and especially the youth. So I think if we can get the youth interested in SAARC, then I think, SAARC will really take off.
But how do you open the doors? Yesterday I passed through the venue. It is there, secluded, isolated, and you have the rest of Kathmandu, the population. And this has become a trend in other great summits of recent past, where the first thing you do is you empty the city, the venue of its people, and say, put restrictions on cars, say, why, give holidays, and say, why don't you take a break? Is this the way to go towards opening up?
Well, security is the bane of all our lives. And I guess to some extent there is inconvenience that the populace has to bear. But I think, if not during the summit, but even prior to the summit, in the build-up to the summit, you can have a lot of other engagements, a lot of other programs, activities involving the young people, even children. So I think a lot can be done. And as we were discussing, just a few minutes ago, there was a SAARC rally, which also, involved all the people of the SAARC region. So there are lots of things I think that can be done to really promote SAARC and make it something for people to look forward to.
Bringing kids out of schools and colleges and making them, giving them access to, a little bit of access, not the plenary, but other access to the deliberations, is that a bad idea? Is that a security threat?
No, certainly. I mean, why not? In fact, you have this model UN. You can have a model SARC for children. Why not? Let them, in schools have SARC summits at the level of children.
So, Madam Ambassador, you said we must hire a consultant. I think somebody is there sitting nearby. But despite your reservations on the media, Ambassador Ray will know very well that Eurovision is a success mainly because it is seen right through because of the media. So what is the role you expect the media to play?
You see, in today's world, the media, it's a private media. It's there was a long time ago, there used to be a SARC audio-visual exchange between the government, the BTV and the Nepal TV and the Doordarshan. There used to be this government channel exchange, but nobody used to watch it. So in this today's world of private media, it's the media that has to come forward with ideas, and the government sector cannot feed the ideas to the media and expect it to be a success. And whatever they come up with, I'm sure the leaders will be happy to support if it's going to promote the region. And as Ambassador has been saying, there could be SARC song contests, there could be exchanges among school children. One very important idea that struck my mind while I was listening to all of you was that we need to take SARC out of the capitals. The summit is capital-centric, but so many events could be organized outside the capitals in all the countries. And perhaps that would help to spark a lot of interest among the general people, among the younger people. I'm sure children from Nepal would love to go and visit the beaches of Cox's Bazar, or go, all the countries of the children of the countries would love to go and visit the mangrove forests of West Bengal and Bangladesh. Children from Bangladesh would love to come and go trekking in the Himalayas. So we could take SARC away from the capital and make it less of a talk discussion forum for the leaders, and come up with imaginative ideas for children or adults and youth for them to respond to.
At the end of the day, we are talking about the summit of SARC, the heads of nations. They have to come out and they have to talk, and they have to be the vibrant personalities which attract attention. Is that the way to go?
Well, it is one of the way, but let me add to your previous question, to which I agree to both His Excellency and Her Excellency, is that I look at it two major issues here when you talk about SARC coming out of its bucket. I think one is space and the other is media. Now, when I talk about space, is that there are quite a few SARC-related institution or SARC-related, like Chamber of Commerce, SARC tourism and all. Had we given them space in this whole summit, maybe they would have come up with different plans for the last 1 week, just like a jamboree. So this whole SARC thing would be more people-oriented, and it would be an attraction, not only for, the government officials or schools, but, it would bring people from the SARC nation to come and join. The second is media also has to play a very vital role and focus on not only the government-staged program or summit. Now let me tell you, like yesterday, a very important festival was open, which is called the SARC Handicraft Exhibition, where you have people coming from, SARC nation coming to exhibit their handicrafts and everything. But unfortunately, the media didn't carry that out. Maybe it just became a piece of a news, and it remained as a news. So until unless the news or the media people also play a very vital role in promoting SARC out of the bucket of head of the government or head of the nation, then we'll be able to do something, and that will also be lesson learned. Second thing is the head of the nation, when they all assemble together, the dialogue between them also is very important. But I think dialogues on these other issues also should be one of the main key issues, so that it will be easy for us to move forward.
But personalities matter, don't you think?
Well, personality does matter, but I think the vision and the thought are more important in those kind of summit.
Ambassador Ray, what should visiting heads of government bring along big delegations, economic delegations, and businessmen, industrialists, and have them in dialogue?
Oh, I think so. I think we need to have a SAARC dialogue at every level, not just between the government sector or the business sector or academia and think tanks, but at the level of the youth, at the level of our entertainment industry, handicrafts, at every level. That is when SAARC will really belong to the people of the region. So I think that is extremely important. And as to the forthcoming summit in Kathmandu, I think very warm congratulations and felicitations are due to the government of Nepal for having made such excellent arrangements. The Kathmandu city is looking very beautiful. It's all decked up. And I'm sure all our delegations will have a wonderful time and a very fruitful summit in Nepal.
But what does India expect from this summit?
We would like to see a SAARC which is very dynamic, which is people-oriented, which will promote greater regional economic integration and people-to-people contacts, and we will work sincerely towards this end.
Will it be a focus of the summit to encourage more interaction between the leaders?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the very important aspects of the summit is the interaction between leaders, and it's not just a formal, structured interaction. It is also an informal interaction at a retreat, where the leaders are by themselves and can discuss any issues of importance and relevance to them. So certainly we are in favor of regular and frequent dialogue at the highest political level, in addition to other levels.
Do you think it should be more frequent, like yearly?
Well, I think that is something that our experts and others should look at in terms of the periodicity. In the old days, if you remember, the ASEAN summits used to take place once every several years. Now they take place twice a year. So it depends on the pace at which the organization is growing, the content of the discussions. So I think this is something that really the experts and the delegations that will be participating in the summit, this is something that they have to take stock of.
Not to say that they're a little bit frivolous, but overall ASEAN, APEC and these things, they seem to be like fun places, people wear all those fancy shirts and all that, which are specially stitched, and is SAARC too stodgy, and brighten it up?
That's just a photo op of the ASEAN and the APEC leaders. I'm sure behind the scene they do work in black suits and in a very serious manner. But as we have been, I think that the whole theme of today's discussion has been that SAARC needs to have an image makeover. And there is this serious problem that SAARC is, image problem that SAARC is suffering from. And even when actual things get done, the SAARC doesn't get credit for it. So yes,
for instance,
there are very small areas where SAARC has been moving forward. Areas of health, areas of agriculture, the SAARC Development Fund, even SAFTA, connectivity issues. There are small, progresses are being made. But those are not promoted at all. We don't even recognize that things are moving ahead. So I think we need to do a lot of rethinking on how to promote the achievements of SAARC.
Just to come back to the point of photo ops, but when those gatherings take place, that photo op kickstarts that whole summit, and it goes to another level because everybody watches it, and you can understand a fancy, your leaders in fancy clothes. So it puts it there, right in the center. That is the importance of that.
Yes, it puts everybody in a festive mood, and I think that's the purpose of the retreat itself. The retreat.
Not only festive mood. I mean, it gives you great publicity. Everybody is looking at it.
It does. It does give you a publicity, and I don't know whether our leaders should also be encouraged to think in those terms. But the retreat, it does put our leaders also in a situation where they can informally discuss many of the trickier issues which they couldn't talk in a formal panel, so in the formal platform. So that option is there for them to be informal with each other and talk to each other.
So you are the hosts of this gathering of leaders. So what do you expect? What does Nepal expect from this summit?
Well, I just wanted to add on what Her Excellency said on this photo ops. I think South Asia is very unique, and we all have very strong cultural and blended society. So for us to come and have a photo ops with different designers' clothes that we all wear as a national dress is also to show to the world, how rich we are in culture. That's one aspect of it, because we're all dressed up in our own national dress, customs, so, it shows us.
But may I interrupt that?
Sure.
Bangladesh takes the prize for colorful.
Sure, I would say that's good. That's the reason we're all together. With dual colors, we're together. Well, I hope, my expectation with this whole summit is that, as I said, and being a commerce minister, having attended SAFTA, that, we'll be able to make some headway on SAFTA agreement, that's number one. And Nepal and the rest of the SAARC nation will at least be able to be in a melting pot with our culture and society, so that we could be integrated even stronger and we stand united for years to come.
So if briefly you want to say, what is the success mantra for this summit?
Well, the success mantra for this summit is all head of the state to come in together, to be frank, and also that we're able to put our things on the table and to come up with a common cause, which is development, prosperity.
Madam Ambassador.
Yes, I think I will take it from where Mr. Minister has said. We all need to work together for our common prosperity and socio-economic development.
I agree entirely, and I think we should do this in a manner to demonstrate how we are injecting new dynamism, new vitality into the SAARC process.
So we take it out of stodginess, make it vital, energize it, make it conscious of economic progress and vibrance. And we thank you all for not just being here, but agreeing with everybody. And I think SAARC must be the least contentious, going by this discussion of gatherings of international leaders. So we wish it all the success. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador. Thank you very much, Ambassador Ray, for participating in this discussion. So we look forward to SAARC Summit 2014 in Kathmandu. Thank you.
Thank you very much.